What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, where today I have some exclusive footage of the Imperial Trooper reworks. As many of you guys know, I am a part of the Game Changers program alongside some other great YouTubers, and I was able to get access to some maxed out Zeta Imperial Trooper footage. And Mick Mole 2, who is also a part of the Game Changers program, was kind enough to supply a couple battles with the Imperial Troopers on defense so you can see how they behave. If you have been following me for a while, you would know that I have geared up my Empire characters quite a long time ago, back in March of 2016, hoping they would be good, but for so long they have been so bad, so I am really excited to see this update come through, probably my favorite update ever for this game, and I'm really hoping they will be good, and we will talk about if they are competitive in Arena, as well as other matters for this game. So to quickly summarize what is to come, alongside the Veers rework that we got last week, several other Imperial foot soldiers received the Imperial Trooper tag that will allow them to share amazing bonuses with one another to conquer their foes. And the characters that were given the tag of Imperial Trooper are General Veers, Death Trooper, Stormtrooper, Magma Trooper, Snow Trooper, and Shore Trooper. And aside from the various bonuses being shared among the troopers, they also got a huge damage increase and some tweaks to some of their abilities that make them way more competitive in Arena than they ever were before. And at the end of this video, I will share my personal thoughts on this rework in a very objective manner, despite my excitement for the reworks, and we shall also rank them on a squad ranking table for this game. So firstly, we are going to talk about what changed with all these characters, and we'll first start off with Death Trooper and Shore Trooper, since they got the least amount of changes because they were already amazing to begin with. Death Trooper, all they got was a very minor change, with the main thing being added in his unique ability known as Krennic's Guard. It allows him to now grant Imperial Trooper allies plus 10% health steal while he is active, and this is very important because most of the Imperial Troopers have an AoE and they do big damage now, which means they can gain a lot of health when they are attacking. Next up, we have Shore Trooper. Also did not get too much, but some very important things to mention. Now he can grant health and critical immunity to himself while using the regroup. Before, he was able to give it to everyone, but now he also can grant that to himself. Plus, his unique ability known as Stand Guard allows him to grant other Imperial allies plus 10% max health, increasing many of their already high health pools. And General Veers is the rework we've already seen last week, and it's quite a big change. First of all, his basic attack, which is Daring Attack, now does more damage than before and can grant speed up to a random Imperial Trooper ally who does not have it. General Veers is now like Commander Cody when using Ruthless Assault, and this is just a fun ability to use. And what it does now is that he can call all Imperial Trooper allies to assist, and it also got a huge damage improvement, and it has a 55% chance to inflict ability block on the enemies, so a lot of stuff going on there. Plus, he also does 10% more damage for each living rebel enemy, and that is important to mention because we have Chirrut, Baze, soon to be R2-D2, who is a rebel, and these are probably popular characters you are seeing and you will see in Arena, so this is very important to consider. His leader ability definitely got some changes. It's known as Imperial Assault Commander, and it now grants Imperial Trooper allies an additional 20 speed on top of the already 30% offense bonus that he had before, but they also gain 10% turn meter whenever they gain a buff. The last thing to point out is that General Veers now has a Zeta ability on his unique, which is Aggressive Tactician. He now grants Imperial Trooper allies offense up for 2 turns, grants 50% turn meter, and allows troopers to recover 10% protection upon an enemy being defeated while he is active. Also, while he is active, he automatically grants 15% critical chance to all Imperial Troopers. Snow Trooper is next on the table, and holy cow, this guy is a true cannon and can apply some huge damage now. First of all, Assault Shock Troops is his basic attack and now has increased damage by 10% with the Omega upgrade, giving an additional 15% chance to apply ability block. And when using him in the right team, I have found him applying over 30,000 damage on this basic attack when getting a critical hit, so definitely bonkers. Overwhelming Assault is just as bonkers, where now it deals physical damage to all enemies and gains critical damage up for 2 turns. And then for each critical hit scored, you reduce the cooldown of this ability by 1. So because of all this damage increase on his AoE, he can now have the potential to apply over 20,000 damage per enemy and even more when using an Imperial lineup with the right people. And the cooldown is also great because it's reduced by 1 for each critical hit scored, allowing you to spam this ability back to back to back, really chopping away at their health and protection. And if you get 3 critical hits, that is all that is needed to reduce the cooldown all the way to 0 by the time he takes his next turn. Now, my buddy Magma Trooper got some loving with this update. I had used them before in a Zeta lineup. That was a pretty popular video among you guys. Check it out before, and now he is even better and probably a very suitable person to use 100% of the time in a Zeta lineup because of this. First of all, his basic known as Line of Fire now allows him to hit the primary target a second time. Plus, the damage penalty was reduced by 5% at all levels to make sure he is hitting as hard as possible when that second attack becomes a thing. Huge damage increase on this ability, where he can now safely hit above 10,000 damage at times, and the chance of getting a second attack out of this was increased by roughly 35%, making him hit twice way more often. What really made Magma Trooper important was his AoE known as Thermal Imploder because of all the turn meter removal it can do. Now it's even more deadly because it has a huge damage increase where he can now safely hit way harder than before, and even harder when he is in an Imperial squad with Snowtrooper. At times he can hit about 10,000 damage, which is huge compared to what he did before. He is now able to apply critical damage on this ability, whereas before this update, he could not apply critical damage. If you notice the difference, before you had those white numbers, which means no critical damage, but they changed that to allow him to do more damage, and now he is a real attacker. And the last change was in his unique hazard training, where he grants other Imperial Trooper allies plus 30% tenacity, and now grants an additional 10% turn meter to himself when resisting or suffering a debuff. But from my experience, the additional 30% tenacity did not seem to help too many of his allies that much, but it did definitely help him because he already has a high base tenacity. The last Imperial Trooper that got some attention was Stormtrooper, and I'm happy to see this because I have this guy at Gear 11 in my own personal inventory, and with his basic known as Imperial Marksmanship, he can now actually apply Expose on an enemy when his attack gets evaded or when it does not critically hit someone, and this Expose cannot be resisted. So when you go up against those Maul teams, this Expose will apply a lot, assuming he can actually go and attack. Also, it hits quite hard when paired with General Veers as well as Snowtrooper. I've gotten plenty of clips that get him over 20,000 damage. Plus, we'll talk soon later, but there's also a Zeta ability on him, which increases this damage by a absolutely absurd amount, where he can go over 30 and sometimes potentially 40,000 damage if in the right situation. His taunt, Stormtrooper Bravado, got some tweaks here. Now he has a 100% chance to remove 10% turn meter when he is taunting, and this means it will work quite well in a Vader Zeta team because on top of all the turn meter removal from attacking, they can also get turn meter removed when they are whacking Stormtrooper as he is taunting. His unique ability, Wall of Stormtroopers, has a Zeta and now will grant 40% defense for each living Empire ally to himself, and when he is active, he grants plus 30% defense to all Imperial Trooper allies. The Zeta allows him to gain 40% offense for each defeated Empire ally. So to put that in perspective, potentially when assuming 4 Empire allies are defeated, he can gain 160% offense, and he has a high damage variance, so this can do some insane damage if you are knocking out his Empire allies. And because of the damage increases, the Zeta, and being paired with other people, I think he is the highest damage dealing tank that we have in the game by a huge margin. And Stormtrooper works great when paired with Short Trooper to have two people taunting. It's a great combo, and he increases the durability of the Imperial team, which can be important depending on how you want to run it. So let's get into my personal thoughts about this. Of course, I'm really excited, but there are many downfalls to this team still, but it is really fun to use. It's arguably not as good as the Baze and Chirrut and Rex combos, and once R2-D2 comes in, it is probably going to be added in those Rex and Chase combos, but let's be honest here. This team is like the rock and roll of music. You get all this thrashing, loud noises, and it's just fun and exciting versus these Chase and Rex teams. They're just slow dancing elevator music, and they aren't all that fun to use, but yes, they are a pretty solid defensive squad. But this game is about having fun, and by far, this is a very fun lineup to use if you want to see explosions, everyone assisting, and major damage being applied. I can confirm that this team does win battles. I've rolled over many resistance teams, as you will soon find out with R2-D2. This can definitely beat R2-D2 teams as well. However, there is a huge problem, and that problem is Darth Maul. Darth Maul's Zeta team with all Sith just walk over the Imperial troopers like it's nothing. When they go stealth, they can't be critically hit. They apply a lot of damage. They have deadly debuffs such as Daze, Shock, Nihilus can increase cooldowns, and with this team, if you're being ability blocked or your cooldowns are being increased, you're having a hard time despite the fact your basic can apply some major damage. You want to use those AoE abilities, the taunt ability, all that stuff. You could potentially defeat Darth Maul teams, but you will need to add a cleanser of some sort or a really good healer slash cleanser like Veers, Zeta, which I am probably going to use because her heal equalization is very helpful, especially when they are shocked or they have healing immunity. She also grants health when they are being critically hit, and she can cleanse on her unique ability. But if you are not going up against a Darth Maul team, this team does pretty well. Besides the high damage output, the bonuses stack is very great. Gaining 10% health steal, 10% max health, 20% critical damage, plus 30% tenacity, plus 30% offense, and plus 15% critical chance just from uniques being tied together at the very start of the game is really huge, making them very heavy on the defensive side, as well as making them very heavy on the offensive side. But as I said, because this team does not have a lot of deadly debuffs like the Sith team to apply, they don't have an Imperial cleanser as of now to help them out, they can definitely be walked over. But if your goal is to go in guns blazing, these guys will get the job done, and it does conquer many teams on the battlefield. So overall, this faction pass rework is not nearly as good as the Sith faction pass rework that we saw, but it's definitely a huge improvement than ever before, and it's a lot of fun to run this team. If you really want to run an Imperial Trooper team, you only can have 5 out of the 6 reworks in the team. So if you want my opinion for a full Imperial Trooper team, you want to use the Veers leadership. Of course, I'd really like if you can have the Zeta on his unique. Short Trooper is definitely a must to get that increased health at the beginning, as well as the taunt. Death Trooper for the buff dispelling, the healing immunity, as well as applying Death Mark, and Terminate does some pretty big damage. That is also important. And as well as Snow Trooper for the critical damage increase, as well as the back-to-back-to-back overwhelming assault. Stormtrooper is also great because he can increase the defense of your team, apply expose, and remove turret meter from the other team. So that is my recommendation for a full Imperial team. But to be really effective, I highly recommend tossing in some sort of hybrid combination, and Barriss Offie's Zeta seems to be the best bet from my personal experience, and you can easily beat Darth Maul teams if you are using her Zeta. And finally, last thoughts on this. This team is amazing for all the PvE stuff, and you will easily clear dark side hard battles and cantina battles because they just obliterate the enemy from my personal experience, and footage is soon to come with them in the raids. But on paper, a full Imperial Trooper squad sounds amazing for the AAT raids, and I think it might be one of the better ones, but we will soon find out. So now let's rank this squad on this brand new Galactic Squadron raid. ranking table, where this table is specifically for squad synergy. Now, for example, a couple weeks ago, I showcased a full First Order Zeta team. I did not rank them, but if I had to rank them in the game when putting all First Order characters together, they are definitely in the Master category. Likewise, the Imperial Troopers share some of the same benefits as a First Order team, but are lacking quite a little bit because they need an Imperial Trooper cleanser to really make them shine, and someone who can heal a little bit better. But if you cannot control their abilities and mitigate the damage they apply to you, you are in for a world of pain. Therefore, the Imperial Trooper squad will be ranked as a Master. And on that bombshell, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. By far, one of my favorite things that have ever come to this game, but hopefully I was able to identify the weaknesses and strengths of this particular squad, and feel free to let me know down below if there are any weaknesses or strengths that I did not make note of. And if you did enjoy this video, feel free to drop a like on it, stay subscribed so you're not missing a thing. Check out my Patreon page if you want access to these videos early, as well as a script, as well as hanging out with me on a monthly basis. Definitely check that out. But as always, guys, we will talk soon, and I have a lot more awesome footage coming your way. Peace out.